Don't get too emotional. If you're fixing to reach out to your representative, you're living with an issue that is, it didn't just hit, it didn't start affecting you today. So when you reach out to me or any representative, some people I've talked to, they were, I don't know the right word for it, but they really couldn't convey what they wanted to do. I think if you're going to call me, you may need to have notes. Like
Yeah.
you may need to make sure that I want to cover X, Y, and Z. And then tell me, I have a lot of people say, I'm going to email you now. Like they'll talk to me and they say, I'm going to put this in an email and they'll send me an email and I've printed those emails. I've shared them with people. I forwarded them on to other representatives with me.
So this is the third time that I've gotten to interview District 56 Representative Clay Mansell. Okay, let's first of all, before we get going, nail down how we say your last name, because there's a few friends that I have that everybody's name gets kind of messed up. Is it Mansell or Mansell?
Mansell,
Okay, so
almost like the
Representative.
E's and U almost.
Okay, a good Southern pronunciation of Mansell. There
Yeah.
we go. All right, District 56 Representative Clay Mansell. This is your third year of getting into this, so I kind of wrote the things that I sent you. This isn't your first rodeo, and it's kind of not your first return. I equated it like a sophomore album. Like if there's a band that comes out that's got a great first album, you kind of wonder what their second album is going to be like. But this is the third one. This is the third year that you're coming in to impact state policy. You've already impacted state policy and laws. You've got two under your belt and two to go. So how does going into this third year compare to going into the previous 2 years?
It's going to be easier. It's a lot like, a new job or starting a new business. You just kind of learn the ropes, learn the people, learn the processes. So I kidded with somebody, I felt a major accomplishment when I knew where the bathrooms were the first year. But you're really learning how the process works. I think in third grade we learned how a bill becomes a law,
All right.
um, and it's a little bit harder than the song. So that's what I'm looking forward to is just like before we even went live, you told me about an issue that you've been having. Like, I now know what to do with that issue. Well, before, if you would have told me, I'd be like, yeah, that sounds important. We need to work on that. Now, I mean,
Someone.
like I know exactly who to go to with it, so I can represent the constituents better, and that's true of just I think anything in general, whatever in life you jump into, experience helps.
Yeah, so I asked you last year, and so I kind of will ask the same question this year. Kind of going into your third year, what have you been proud of so far? You've done a lot. I know there's been a lot with foster care and adoption and so many other things. But what are you most proud of in these past 2 years that you've been a part of?
It's the individual wins. We obviously passed some really great legislation. I mean, eliminating income tax, that was kind of the banner thing for last year. And that'll have lasting effects. I mean, I could tell to you the whole Zoom about what that will do downstream, but it's the smaller things. Because in reality, anybody that Clinton elected, they would have voted to eliminate income tax. I mean, that was an easy vote. But there's when my phone rings and it's a constituent that needs help with one issue that I can help with, and those happen a good bit. Whether it's getting somebody to the right person, they're having a Medicaid issue or an insurance issue. Um, I even had somebody with a gun permit that just it wasn't happening, and I was able to connect the dots. So, I mean, I really like representing the people of, Clinton, Madison, and Flora when they call. I like to be able to help get them where they need to be, connect the dots. And it's not always that I can do it for them, but I can usually come back to them and tell them why their request is not moving and, talk to them one-on-one
Yeah.
about that.
That's I see it on such a much smaller level with the city government of we can't successfully finish X, Y, or Z, but the hurdles are right here. Let's go back and fix those hurdles and bring it back, and then we can maybe get across the finish line, like you said. So
Yeah.
that's great. I appreciate. I will say, kind of going into this third year, first 2 years, I was like, is he having fun? Is he enjoying it now? But the workload, I think, is is kind of in your sweet spot now. And I think you've done a great job over 2 years. And so I'm excited to see what year three brings. Part of where you are now, you were named, I believe last year, you were named as the co-chair of, let me get this right, the Select Committee on Capital and Metro Revitalization. That was back in July of 2024. It's you and I believe Shonda Yates are the co-chairs.
Yes.
Okay, and so there's a good many other names that if those of us who like to watch the YouTube productions like passing a laws of production, but the big productions of what's going on in the session. You've got Angela Cochran, you've got Lawrence Blackman, Jill Ford over there in Madison, Stephanie Foster, who's helped a lot here in Clinton. A lot of really awesome names, and you attached to it. So the focus, I believe, of this select committee is to kind of improve the economic and social areas of Jackson and the surrounding metro areas. When you're putting together a select committee like that, are there any kind of benchmarks that you have or any kind of goals, like specific goals that y'all put together and say, okay, let's hear from whomever, what can we do? And then how can we tell whether or not our meetings have been successful?
Well, when Jason formed it, Speaker White formed it, he actually told us that there was nothing that was off the table. He just listen, explore, do hearings, and see where that goes. We were the only select committee that was reauthorized. So we had a bunch, the year before, and ours was the only one that continued. We were able to pass a lot of great laws from our committee after that first year. But what we found was there was really no issue that we were tackling that wasn't in every community. Obviously, there's areas where it's more prevalent, but even tax forfeited abandoned properties and state-owned properties and how that comes back off the rolls. If you think about that property in Old Town Clinton, although it's a little bit different scenario, some actually still was paying taxes on it. We've created laws that will help in that situation. Or if Clinton has one abandoned property, our citizens aren't going to look at that as like, well, it's just one. Jackson may have hundreds, but so this law will help everybody. There's about 5 laws that they passed, and this year we will have several more. We got into water issues a little bit more this year than I thought we would have, but because of Jackson Water. But what we found in Canton, our neighbor, we had a lot of issues there. CMU has grown through the years. So, like Lake Caroline is on CMU water, but the way the legislation is written is that an alderman appoints to the CMU board. So there's no way for somebody in Lake Caroline to be represented on CMU. Again, this is another topic I could talk your entire Zoom about, just Lake Caroline water and CMU, but there's lots of great stuff that's coming out of that. And that's what this all the committees that he formed were able to do, was really work out of session and dig into the issues and see what needed to be worked on. And it would go to a regular committee. Like a lot of our stuff went to Judd A or Judd B that we wrote up, but Representative Yates was the one that actually wrote it, and then we co-signed on to it. The committee did.
Okay, kind of walk me through that process. So that's one of the ones that I think that I got a notion on it, but I'm not real clear. So when it goes to Judd A or Judd B, what is their job, I guess, per se, of what does Judd A and Judd B do when it comes to them and then it leaves?
Well, they're no different than any other committee. So we were talking about the Wildlife Committee earlier.
Yeah.
So every bill that a lawmaker wants gets dropped. Like we put it literally there's a box, we drop it in. It goes to the speaker's office, and then the speaker sends every single bill to a committee. So the ones that we wrote, kind of depending on what it dealt with, is what committee it would go to. So then that committee gets it. And again, this is what we learned in third grade, so none of us remember this. So this is where it can start to die. That committee chairman can choose to never do anything with it. He can just sit on it. Had to go to his committee, had to be assigned out of the speaker's office to a committee. It'll be on, and you can see it online. That's where it went. but the committee chairman could kill it, or the committee itself could kill it and they not vote to pass it. So if it moves through that, it goes to the floor to get voted on. We can vote it up or down. And then it gets transferred to the Senate and starts the whole process all over again.
Yeah.
That Senate committee chair could kill it, the committee could kill it, or the floor could kill it. Um, so when a bill becomes a law, it has worked its way. We say it was working the process. I mean, it literally has. And one thing I got frustrated on my very first year, and I actually spoke to the governor about this at the Neshoba County Fair, and it's just the slow moving process and stuff that didn't move. And he told me, he goes, Clay, that's the way it's supposed to work because Mississippi's been around for 100 whatever years
Yeah.
out that particular law. We'll probably be fine for one more year while we fine tune it and make sure it's what we need. So the process to become a law is very complicated. And then after all that, it can get vetoed or, start all over.
Right. No, as much as frustrating as that process can be, I think it's a good filter. We do the same thing in the city where, somebody wants something or doesn't want something, or they ask for something where it's going to be very clear against an ordinance. I still think people have the right to ask so that they can
Mm-hmm.
get through that process and realize, oh, this was filtered out. I can't do this, and we learn something from it. Your committee recently, December 11th, I kept telling you that I watched your committee meeting, and I did. And I watched it. I didn't watch it in its entirety because it was a good 6 hours long, including the lunch break. But I kind of went through and I listened to some of the people talking just to see what they were asking and to kind of, judge the temperature of what's coming up. But you heard first from Jackson Water. So I guess you talked about water last year. Water is going to be a same thing coming up this year. The Great City, Mississippi group, I've never heard of them. They were new that I got to hear about. The Cancer Center and Research Institute with UMMC.
Mm-hmm.
Heard from Judge Stanley Alexander and Judge James Holland with the Capital Complex Improvement District Court, which is new, and then the Mississippi Museum of Art and Jackson Public Schools. So you hear from these groups that are wanting to better the area. They know that your committee can help them. What are you, as the chair and the committee members, what are you looking to hear from people during these meetings?
We're looking for their ideas on what we need to do to help them legislatively. And you will probably even hear us say that. Like we'll look at them and say, what do you need from us? And they generally have an ask. And it's not always money. A lot of people ask for money, but they will specifically say, there is a law. Here's a great example. You mentioned JPS. This was you ought to go back and watch that in detail. It's the most fascinating of the whole thing. So in the 70s, Jackson had, and don't hold me to these numbers, I may be off a
Yeah.
thousand. They had about 36,000 students and they had 50 school buildings. So fast forward today, they have less than half of that. They have 18,000 students and they have 58 school buildings.
Mhm.
So their school district decided with rapidly declining enrollment, they were building new buildings. But what JPS, to their credit, I'm not talking bad about the current people that were there, they came to us, they basically need help to sell their buildings.
Yeah.
It's very complicated to sell a school building. And here's something that I never dreamed of. Let's say that Clinton Public Schools wanted to sell where your office is, the old East Side campus. I would have to come to you and tell you exactly what I was going to do. Let's say I'm going to put a retirement home in.
Okay.
20 years from now, if I'm like, retirement home isn't working, I want to turn it into a daycare. I can't do that. And if I don't use it for what I bought it from you for, our proposal said, it immediately reverts back to the school district. Well, the school district, one, doesn't want it back,
Right.
nor would any bank loan them any money, or it'd be harder to get money loaned knowing that the building, the asset that you got a 30-year loan on, in 20 years, if you change why you needed it, would revert back to the school district. So JPS does, of those 58 schools, 17 of them are closed. But I did the math while we were sitting there. When they had the 50 school buildings and all those children, they had 700 and something students per building. Now they have 400. So they still probably need to look at some more consolidation. But even those 17 empty buildings they have today cost them money. And it's somebody's tax dollars that's paying to maintain those buildings. So we want to help them make the law where they can sell them and make it a little bit easier and more common sense to sell them.
How have you taken what you've heard over these past few years? Obviously, last year would be the best sample size to find, but how have you taken what you've heard in these meetings and actually implemented them in legislative sessions?
Well, the best example is the specific select committee. We came and brought in the police chief and the sheriff, who is now one person. At the time, it was two different people, and we brought in Bo Lucky, who's a CCID police chief, and we asked them, like, what do you need? And they specifically told us, I mean, like. When you break into a house and just not loitering, but when you just start living there, forget what it's
Oh,
called.
the squatting.
Squatting, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a big word. I couldn't think of it. Like there wasn't really anything on the books to deal with that. And even panhandling, like when you're collecting money, and this is where you had to listen really closely to get this legislation right, because Jackson desperately wanted it. And I don't know what Clinton did, but Clinton may not have any issue with the Girl Scouts collecting money at an intersection.
Hmm.
So some cities didn't want the legislation. They're like, we're fine. You think about Pelahatchie, they're fine in their little intersection if if the firefighters are raising money, they don't want them to come to City Hall and have to get a permit. Just go do it. So you've got to listen to what your communities need to make sure you don't, like this is one you can opt in or out of in the 2 years is that we're constantly tweaking legislation that may have had some unintended consequences.
Gotcha. Well, it's always impressive when things occur that way, and you get to see it from the start to finish. And I bet it's amazing when you get to be you know, in the room where it happened. If we want to take something from Lin Manuel Miranda, but going into 2026 into this legislative session that's around the corner, there are certainly some big bills and big topics that are coming our way, and then there are a few of those little ones that are kind of on the side that might slip by people who aren't paying attention. So, what are the big ones that are coming across that people should pay attention to? Specifically, I want to talk to you about school choice and some of the little ones that are coming by. But what are some things that people should pay attention to, and what are some clarifications of definitions and knowledge that people should have going into this session?
You know, you need to pay attention to all of it. I have been real impressed with the people in my district that are watching. And once you get used to logging on to our website and seeing the bills that are coming down, because it is the little ones that sometimes are the most impactful to a segment of people. So I would encourage you just to be involved and watch the website. You can look at all the bills that have been dropped. I mean, nowadays you can use AI to put in keywords to see what's going to be changing with you and what's going to be happening. The more involved the community is, and you've probably seen me post, I like the feedback. I like the real world. You typed me an email. The copy and paste, it doesn't really,
Yeah.
I mean, uh, I mean, that shows that there's a lot of people out there, kind of, but you
Well,
type
and
me
you
an
you
email.
posted today on Facebook. You posted all the deadlines that everybody can kind of put on their calendar to kind of see what's
Yeah,
coming up.
yeah. Well, and especially if you're in an industry that is heavily regulated, like pay attention to the bills that are be coming through. Because I'm not an expert on everything. I don't know, when we vote on specific issues. Like, I mean, I need people. Like, there would be something what that affects school information officers. Well, I mean, you need to look at that and be like, no, you need to change this sentence.
Right.
That's gonna mess us up if you put that in there. And that's the case for, I mean, it was 3,000 bills dropped last year. I mean, I'm not an expert on all 3,000 bills, so
Right.
the community feedback's important.
So the big one with school choice, like I said, there's going to be an entire session that's coming down the road. The city of Clinton, we put out a, a statement and a position on it. So all the board of aldermen, we've made it very clear where we stand on it. But one of the things that I've been asked, whether it be in my bill paying job with the school, whether it be with the city, or just, somebody who pays attention, is what I think of school choice. And one of the things that we talk a lot about is there are no hard definitions right now of what it looks like or what it could look like. So instead of kind of picking a side, clarify some of the definitions of what we need to pay attention to, whether that be ESA, whether that be portability. What are these words that we need to know that, again, they're not in law yet? So we can't pick a position and say, well, it's a good thing, it's a bad thing. It hasn't gotten there yet. So what are some ways to educate ourselves of what the words are that are associated with school choice?
Absolutely. Great question. Technically, Mississippi does have school choice today. So we would be expanding on that. Now it's, underperforming school districts can have charter schools and there are ESAs. So last year, and until I don't think I've ever heard the word portability before as far as school districts. So that was the bill that they really focused on last year. So right now, if a student at Clinton wanted to transfer to whatever school district. Um, the way the law is now, Clinton can hold that student and not let them go, even if, and they'll say they're not moving. Let's just say they wanted to go to Jackson. Maybe they wanted to go to, you know, the magnet school because they have dance and we don't. So, and Jackson's like, yeah, great. Well, we have a spot for you. We'd love to have you. Clinton could say, no, we're holding you. You can't move. So the portability piece it would say that Clinton cannot hold that student in the district if the receiving school district would accept them. That's basically what portability is. Um, that's what passed the House last year. It didn't pass the Senate. Um, but I think there's going to be a lot more on the table in the bill this year. And we talked about all of it last year. You're going to hear a lot about the Tim Tebow bill.
Right.
That's where a homeschool student could, go join the football team, but not be in the school district. Um, you're going to hear that a lot. And then you're going to go all the way to open enrollment, where really there are no rules. That well, let me make sure there will be a rule. I think the most important rule that people need to watch, if you see it start moving, is that districts, Clinton can set capacity.
Okay.
Um, whether you're for it or against it, I think everybody on either side will agree that that's one of the most important pieces of the puzzle because Clinton, we couldn't take 432 first graders tomorrow or
Right.
students, period. So that's something that we got to keep. And I say that everybody wants it, but you still got to watch it. You got to make sure that doesn't get um, dropped. But so you'll hear that word. What is their capacity and how is that defined? That's when you really start getting into it because capacity is defined by the state Department of Education. I think it's like 27, 28 students
Right.
per classroom. Well, that's not Clinton's capacity, you know.
Right.
And they also need to be able to say, even if capacity is, let's say first grade, we say capacity is 20. Well, you look online and we got two classrooms with 19 students in it. That doesn't need to mean that we can take two students. We've also, within our capacity, we've got to realize and be able to say that whatever the number is, whatever the percentage is, that we save for people to actually move into the Clinton School District. You'll also see that they'll want to be able to start letting, well, just it's easier talking real terms. In Clinton, if a Clinton student decided they wanted to go to CCA, that they would be able to take their money with them.
Right.
So right now it's roughly $8,000. I think it's 7,860. So they would be able to take that money to CCA with them. You'll hear a lot about standards and
Accountability.
testing,
Yep.
and from everything I have seen, none of that really will be on the table. it it will be more of a situation where if or whatever testing private school does, they'll just report that in,
Okay.
but nothing added to it.
Okay. And
I
that
jumped all over the place, but there's
no, you're not. And I think that's actually a really good example of the fact that right now the definitions are all over the place. We've got people on both sides that are criminalizing the other side while trying to, throw out fear tactics. It's hard to walk into something where you don't know the real definitions. I taught English for the longest time. I love grammar. Give me the rules of grammar, and I will work inside that to have something creative. I love that. I think the same with the way that education is looking. We need to make sure that we understand what the rules are. And right now, there's not a lot of definitions. So we've got people out there who scream, "Well, they're creating a fiefdom. Oh, they're trying to create the Wild West." It's those are the extremes. If you got your bell curve, those are your outliers. Throw out the outliers. We got to find what works and what the definitions are in the middle. And that's what I think you're tasked with. That's what you get to do. As we hear all the time, there are things you have to do, and then there are things you get to do, and you get to kind of figure that out. So that's one of those areas. Kind of to close things out here. Last time we talked about how important it is for constituents, and you mentioned this earlier, how constituents can voice their thoughts and their opinions to their elected representatives. You got 2 years worth of phone calls and 2 years worth of emails that have impacted you. How have you seen those things? You kind of mentioned it a little bit that you're not an expert, but how have those emails and phone calls actually landed with you, positively and negatively?
um as far as real emails, real phone calls, they're all positive. Even when we're on different, I mean, I've made some friends who we're on completely opposite sides of whatever issue you come up with. But if you approach it in the right way, I mean, it works. And like I said, the copy and paste, the spam. If you go back way back on my Facebook, I screenshot and posted the issue was kratom. And I mean, my inbox, and to be honest with you guys, 50-50 on the issue, I'd have gone the other way, but because of just the mass, like those people weren't into it. They weren't
Yeah.
feeling it. But I got probably 5% of people that typed out emails on the other side, and that's what matters. I mean, and they have conversations have changed my opinion on stuff, or at least let me see another side that I didn't realize that was out there. I mean, I enjoy it. I mean, I enjoy the conversations. Now, there are certain people I see coming like, we can't talk about this right now. Like, I just can't, I don't have the mental bandwidth. I've actually done that to the superintendent of Madison County Schools one time. I was like, I can't talk PERS today. I can't do it. I
Oh, good
don't
old
have the mental
Purs. Purs is another one that's coming up too, so that'll be one to watch. So somebody's going to get in contact with you if you were giving a little 3 second seminar on how to frame conversation, how to converse with your elected official. What would you say? Email and phone call writing. How would you say frame it this way so we know how to create correspondence?
Don't get too emotional. You know, you are living with an issue. If you're fixing to reach out to your representative, you're living with an issue that is it didn't start affecting you today. So when you reach out to me or any representative, some people I've talked to, they were so, I don't know the right word for it, but they really couldn't convey what they wanted to do. I think if you're going to call me, you may need to have notes. Like
Yeah.
you may need to make sure that I want to cover X, Y, and Z. And then tell me, I have a lot of people say, I'm going to email you now. Like they'll talk to me and they say, I'm going to put this in an email and they'll send me an email. And I've printed those emails. I've shared them with people. I mean, I forwarded them on to other representatives with me.
So if they want to get in touch with you or any of their other representative elected officials, how can people find out how to get in contact with their representative? And then specifically those who live in District 56, how can we contact you?
If you just type my name into Google, you're going to find me. I am probably one of the easier ones because I own publications. You can find me super easy. There's a website with all our information on it. And just so people that live in Clinton know. In fact, we ran an ad together. I don't know if you saw it in the Courier. Me and Stephanie Foster both represent the two biggest sections of Clinton. I mean, I have the majority of Clinton. Stephanie has a decent chunk, and then Bo Brown, he has like half a box that comes up through the YMCA. But you can find all our information there. And you'll a lot of times you'll be surprised at who represents you. Like I have Flora. You would think that I would have all of Flora, but I
Right.
don't. You
Right.
know, like why is it divided in half? The railroad tracks, Lawrence Blackman has the other side. And then once I go into Madison, you know, it's me, Jill Ford, Jonathan McMillan. Jill has the biggest chunk. I really just have down Mansdale Road. But you know, I tell people use that to your advantage. Like call me and Stephanie. Say I live in Clinton. I'm not fixing to pull up the website and Google your address and be like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
You live one street over. You're gonna have to call Bo or you're gonna have to call Stephanie. So reach out. We call it the delegation. Like reach out to your delegation of who represents you. Because usually if it's an issue in your town, we'll all be willing to help and look at it.
Yeah, and it's Mississippi, and you know it's one of the things that I tell everybody. I'm of the opinion, with no data to back this up, but Memphis South, the first word somebody refers to themselves as is Southern. You know, you're a Southern white man, you're a Southern black lady. You know, down here everybody lives with everybody. So if you've got everybody representing from all the different coalitions, then you're good to go. Well, Representative Mansell, I appreciate your time as always. You are by far the number one guest who has appeared on my tiny podcast more than anybody else. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate what you do for our city, for our community, and then just the way that you carry yourself. I think you're a great representative to reflect on our values here, and I couldn't think of anybody else better than you to hold it. So I appreciate your time. Thank you, and best of luck this session.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it.